Boss skipped my promotion to give it to his buddy he hired, so I found a better job and I'm packing my stuff. I've been busting my butt at this company for the past 2 years. From day one, I stayed late, picked up extra projects, trained new hires, and basically kept things running while management looked the other way. I wasn't just coasting. I actually believed hard work and loyalty would be rewarded. So when a position opened up that was perfect for me, I figured this was my chance. I'd already been doing parts of the job anyway. My coworkers joked they should just hand it to me. Honestly, I thought the same thing. Instead, my boss gave the role to his drinking buddy from his old job. No interview, no discussion, nothing. I found out in a team meeting when they announced it. Everyone clapped politely while I sat there realizing all my effort meant nothing compared to a few beers shared with the boss. That was the moment everything clicked. It wasn't about merit, it was about favoritism. And honestly, I think they figured they could have their cake and eat it too. Hand the title to his buddy, but dump all the real work on me. Keep the optics of promoting someone new, while relying on me to keep things afloat. Well, now they'll have to figure out how to do both without me. Because what my boss didn't know was that I already had an offer on the table from another company, one that actually values what I bring. 20% more pay, better benefits, and a new team. I had been considering it, but that team meeting sealed my decision. Today, I handed in my resignation. Watching my boss's face was priceless. He looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. You could see it hit him all at once. The dependable workhorse he thought he could lean on had just walked out the door. Loyalty has to go both ways. I gave them 2 solid years, and when it was their turn to back me up, they failed. So I'm moving on to better things, and they're left scrambling to cover the hole I'm leaving behind. Now for the comments. Tale as old as time. Boss helps his buddy out, with the full assumption that the folks who actually do the work will cover for his buddy's lack of experience and probable incompetence. Looks forward to all the fun times he'll have with his buddy in the office. Boss then gets very upset when said competent and experienced folks aren't loyal and start to leave, instead of doing his buddy's job for him and dealing with the blatant BS at the office. This is why favoritism and nepotism are incredibly frowned upon in workplaces. In both the short and long term, they're toxic as hell. You're much better off leaving a place with that type of boss in charge. He sucks, and things will only get worse for y'all in the long run as the favoritism progressively gets worse. Good riddance. At my last job, nepotism was rife. At redundancy, me and another guy applied for a job, with me having better qualifications. He got it, but it was nothing to do with the fact that his new boss's boss was his dad. The more I look around at this piece of crap world, the more obvious it is that it's run by a-holes and their stupid buddies they gave jobs to instead of qualified people. It's like a damn club where competence doesn't matter, just who you know. Congrats on your new job. Wonder if boss will learn his lesson from this. Honestly, doubt it. Some managers just don't get that treating good people like garbage has consequences. His loss, though, already excited about the new place. I just quit an exploitative internship, where they heavily relied on me for profitable designs. I've been getting the cold shoulder all week. The owner and his lackey were out of town for my last day. Thank goodness, too. Everyone else was super nice and thankful for all that I'd done. Even the facilities manager bought lunch for the crew on my last day. Not everyone is crappy. I kept low-key dropping hints to certain people that they were too good for this place. Loyalty is not acknowledged nor rewarded. It doesn't matter how valuable you are, you'll get dropped at the owner's earliest convenience or mood swing. He's narcissistic and possibly bipolar based on his actions. I'm so glad to be gone and headed to a place I'll be rewarded. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to rehire my sister after she cost my practice $40,000? I am a medical professional and joined my dad's practice 20 years ago. Currently, the practice has been open 51 years. Not really important, but kind of cool. My sister Tina joined the practice the same time I did and started doing all of our insurance and patient billing. She has MS, and her symptoms like memory loss and anxiety have gotten worse over the last few years. My dad went part-time about 8 years ago, so I've been running the practice, meeting with the consultants, monitoring the P&L, keeping our costs down, etc. In August of last year, I noticed that we weren't having as much money coming in. I couldn't figure it out because I was seeing plenty of patients. I went searching through everything and found out that we weren't getting paid by Medicare. I told Tina to figure out what was going on. She came back to me and said that we were kicked off Medicare because we didn't respond to emails for some info. She swears up and down that she didn't get any emails, so we had to re-credential with Medicare. That took about 45 days. When we got the info back, Medicare said that we weren't getting paid for May through November. We had to write off the balances for all the patients we saw then to the tune of $40,000. We appealed to Medicare, and they sent us a statement of what had happened on their end. Tina ignored 3 emails with requests for updated information. Fast forward to today. Tina was very sick with shingles meningitis in July. She was hospitalized for 9 days. It was really serious. We thought she was going to die. She had to have 21 days of acyclovir by IV around the clock. She had issues walking, and one side of her face is permanently paralyzed, causing speech issues. I honestly didn't think she would come back to work. She has long-term and short-term disability, and I really thought with this illness and her MS, she would stay at home. While she was gone, I uncovered a whole lot of info about our insurance and patient billing. If the insurance didn't pay, she would write off the balances instead of following up to get the info she needed to refile the claim. She never sent statements to the patients, just wrote off anything over 90 days so it looked like we were getting paid when we weren't. When she said she was coming back, I told my parents that I didn't want her back because she lied about everything and cost us a lot of money. They said she's family and she couldn't get a job anywhere else, so she gets to come back to work and I have to oversee all the insurance billing to make sure there aren't any mistakes. Like, I have the time for that with the 30 to 35 patients I see in a day. I have another staff member doing it now, but she doesn't want to continue because she knows Tina will make the front desk a toxic area. Also, my parents are hemming and hawing on selling me the practice because they know if I own it, I'll fire her. I'm fed up and frustrated with the whole situation, and I just want to quit. But I've got 20 years here and I love my patients. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to rehire my sister? Can you start looking for other places to work? They know they can treat you like this because you won't actually do anything about it. I know, it really sucks when family treats you like this. I'm very sad about it. Maybe a move is just what you need. Unless you have a no-compete clause in your contract with your dad. Nope. The one contract I signed right out of school expired after 1 year. I'm good. Everything rises and falls on leadership. While I sympathize, this is also on you. If you're the one in charge, you need to know what is going on. Sure, she messed up, but you also messed up by not doing a weekly check of the accounts. It seems as though you just assumed everything would be okay, since it's family. We can't tell you how to treat your sister, but you need to own your part of this debacle. Everyone sucks here. I agree, and I owned up to this to my parents. I assumed she was doing her job correctly and not screwing us over because she's family. I won't make that mistake again. Edit. Wow guys, thanks for the responses. I had to step away to see patients, but let's see if I can clear up some things. 1. My sister cannot own the practice. In my state, medical professionals cannot work for non-medical professionals. The big corporations get around this by hiring a medical professional in a similar field and putting them on the board. 2. I can't start my own practice. Trust me, I would if I could. I'm a single parent. Opening up a new practice right now is horribly expensive, and I won't see profits from it for about 2 years. If I had a spouse, we'd have a salary to fall back on while I worked part-time at another practice until mine took off. I just can't risk it with my child. 3. I think part of the problem is that my dad isn't ready to sell something that he's worked on for 50 years. I may be naive, but I think he's having a hard time letting go. The plan was always for me to buy the practice. When it was theoretical, he didn't have to face it. Now he does. That doesn't excuse his attitude right now, though. 4. We have a meeting in a few days to address these problems. I think if my parents don't listen, I'm just going to wash my hands of the whole thing. I won't abandon my patients, but neither will I continue to run the practice. My dad can come back in and run things. One of two things will happen. It will either get run into the ground and I can buy it cheap, Or he'll find an unsuspecting new grad who doesn't know how to read AP&L and sell it to them. At that point, I'll leave for another office and take my patients with me. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing my company's mandatory unpaid green volunteering hours? My employer just launched a new program where every employee is expected to spend 10 hours a month on community cleanups, tree planting, or other green activities. It's unpaid and outside normal work hours. Management says it's part of our corporate responsibility and that everyone should pitch in because climate change affects us all. Here's my issue. I already volunteer for environmental causes in my own time, and my evenings are packed with family and side projects. I told HR I couldn't add more unpaid hours. They warned me my performance review and team spirit rating might suffer if I don't comply. Some colleagues think I'm selfish. Others secretly told me they also feel pressured but are afraid to speak up. I'm torn. I support environmental action, but this feels like forced labor disguised as charity. Should companies be allowed to make unpaid activism part of the job description? Is it wrong to push back when it's for a good cause? Or is this crossing a line? Am I the a-hole? I can't believe a company can force their employees into 10 hours of unpaid time on their days off or after work when everyone's exhausted and trying to get all their own chores and errands done. You might get fired, but I think you could consult a lawyer on that. Unless you signed a contract that said people were expected to do this. Yeah, it really surprised me too. I don't remember ever signing anything about mandatory volunteering, so that's why it feels off. I'm definitely looking into my rights before I decide my next step. Thanks for the perspective. I'll work for no pay when you pay me for time I'm not working. Not the a-hole. That's exactly how it feels to me. I don't mind volunteering, but I think it should be a personal choice, not something you're penalized for if you can't do it. Your wording sums it up perfectly. This is crazy. And I would argue that if they are requiring it but not paying you for it, that's a wage and hour violation. I'd call your Department of Labor and have a chat about this. Good idea. I've started reading up on labor laws and will reach out if it looks like a violation. Appreciate you pointing me in the right direction. Before you do, email HR and ask them again for clarification that they said your performance reviews would be affected if you refuse to attend unpaid mandatory volunteering. If they are smart, they will backtrack, but if not, then you have ammo for the labor board to work with. It will also help you if they retaliate. Last story. Need all the equipment back? Fine. This project is all yours too. I was working remotely for a European-based manufacturer of, at least my division, high-end broadcast processing equipment. They also made other pro equipment, but this area was the highest end and by far the most technically demanding. Very niche, very configuration dependent, etc. Great technical staff and developers in Europe. We had a great relationship, being a bunch of tech nerds who could talk about IP ranges and capacitor values for hours. The US office just took orders from HQ over there. They had some good basic techs, but they weren't set up to do any high-end troubleshooting, which is exactly why I existed. There was an acquisition coming up, and auditors started to be involved. We had to send in an inventory of all of our computers and test gear, etc. Fine, whatever. Well, remember that setup-dependent part? I was right in the middle of a huge project with one of the largest US broadcasters, which had already resulted in one of the largest upgrade sales this division had ever made, and was testing some fresh-from-the-sandbox SNMP features. This is pretty old tech that is still being used, so I enlisted an older Supermicro server I had been barely using for remotely accessing some kit in my workshop to do some basic SNMP functions to make sure these new features didn't bung anything up before I literally put them on air on 50-plus stations. Things were working fine with tests. I'd get a new revision first thing in the morning, bang on it a bit, send it off to my tech contact by my end of day at the network, which was his morning. Not terribly difficult, but pretty niche. And also one reason I worked for this company. No one knew at all what any of this was in North America. So, auditors are involved, and the North American office that just takes orders sees this Supermicro server on the inventory list, and it's the end of the world. Why is there a server out in the field? Why do you need so much test equipment? Who approved this? Etc. My first couple of replies were just disregarded because no one knew what I was talking about. A decision was made that this server had to go back. A third insistence from me that this was actively used and who else would take this over fell on deaf ears. It was the most important thing in the entire world that they get this server back. It's a junky old Supermicro 1 RU utility beast that cost maybe $1,000 at most. For whatever reason, I was feeling extra snarky the day I should have boxed the server up. So I wrote an extra friendly note to all the techs, the decision makers at the US office, and to my tech contact and his boss at the network, introducing everyone, thanking them for taking over this critical project, and thanking HQ for helping take on this time-sensitive test phase that would really help me get to other critical projects. About 25 minutes later, I sent tracking information for all the kit. Still didn't box up the server I was supposed to send back. About an hour later, I get a really odd email from one of the decision makers in the US office. He doesn't want to admit that no one at HQ knows what the heck I was talking about technically, and simultaneously realized this is a huge account that would totally affect their bonuses if another nice sale came through. They were trying to save face and cover for their techs by suggesting maybe I get them up to speed on the project before we do anything drastic. I just replied to his email with the tracking information again and mentioned I had suggested this 3 times now. 25 minutes later, I get a freaked out phone call from the head tech at US HQ. He and his superior, the decision maker, had just gotten a very nice call from my contact's boss at the network. They were so happy with the service so far. I had a great relationship at this point and excited that having someone else checking these updates would allow me to be on site more. Big future plans, etc. He was wondering who was going to do this work now. Now this comes up? I just repeated that 3 times this was brought up, so clearly this decision was educated. They know best. So now there's full-blown panic at US HQ. Knowing this, I send a note to the developers in Europe to make sure the new updated code goes to the catch-all address for the US HQ tech team and not me, because they will be doing the testing going forward. This has the desired effect, because now the head of development in Europe is on the horn with the decision maker in the US, wondering about who they recently hired, without approval, to be able to have these in-house resources now. By the time that UPS pickup was supposed to have happened, somehow having this old server back was no longer the highest priority. In fact, I never heard about the server again. So what was the outcome as regards the client? How was all of this explained away to them? In the end, I had to take a trip to the client's NOC earlier than scheduled, go for a nice Thai lunch, great folks there, and explain I was still their tech contact. Justified it saying HQ had some new tech resources supposedly available to help.